everybody, hope you're all well. Welcome to another episode of Shirley Says. I'm Shirley, I'm your host, and today I am joined by the absolutely delightful, lovely Lianne. And Lianne is here to talk about psoriasis. Hello, Lianne, how are you?
Hello, thanks very much for having me.
Thank you for joining me. And I'm just going to say, I'm so sorry. Leanne thought we'd already recorded this. We were so busy chatting.
We basically had all this chat already. We're going to do it all again for you guys.
Done a whole podcast just for fun. And I never pressed record. So massive apologies. And you can just tell me all this. You can tell me all this all over again. So,
hope I can remember it all.
I know, that's okay. Don't worry. So I suppose I am obsessed with skin, and as I'm a beauty therapist and I have a salon, and I am obsessed with glowing skin. And as a kid, I had psoriasis, and reading your Facebook and your podcast chat, you suffered, I think, in a lot more extreme way, but you'd gone through this quite similar process of talk us through this of when you got psoriasis and how you kind of came to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with psoriasis when I was about 16. And at the time, I think probably similar to yourself, like went through the kind of standard medical treatments for psoriasis, so like topical steroids, various different topical steroids, and then kind of progressed on to like UVB treatment and things like that. I never got as far as like kind of biologics and like methotrexate and things like that. Probably by that time I was looking for maybe like a longer term solution, and something that would have a kind of longer term impact. Everything was quite short term, like the steroid creams, it would work for a little while and it would create a lot of kind of skin thinning and things like that as well. So.
Oh yeah, I was completely addicted to my steroid cream. I would have like a meltdown if I thought the bottle was about to run down, because it worked so well, but only for so long. So then it would just be like proper meltdown. And then I went back to the GP and they would literally get the little book out again and just go on to the next product. So it was almost like that sort of, we don't really know what to do with this. We don't know what to do with you, but actually it's almost like process of elimination a bit.
Yeah, and I think like they have to kind of go through these, so there's like the nice guidelines that they have to go through, and they're based on the research that's done. And we were kind of chatting about this earlier, like, you know, there's a bit of an imbalance in the research in terms of the investment into kind of diet and lifestyle intervention versus the investment into pharmaceutical intervention for psoriasis.
Oh, definitely.
So it's heavily weighted on the pharmaceutical side, so therefore the guidelines completely align to that. And as you say, it's just a kind of book of like, right, here's the treatments that we go through. And at the moment, there's not really any dietary or lifestyle interventions that are kind of suggested
or recommended.
Or recommended, exactly. There's no guidelines around it at the moment, and that's something like I'm a real activist for that. I have to say, I'm a real activist for more research into diet and lifestyle intervention. So we've got really good guidelines to follow, and so that people just know they've got evidence-based information, you know, to make really good decisions. Because I think probably both of us found our way via Google or various
but you know,
forms, you know.
I think you're so right. We were kind of, I mean, when you and I, it was weird when I was talking to you before, because we were both pretty much got it at very similar ages and stages. We dealt with it in quite different ways, because you started cutting things out of your diet, which is so sensible. I didn't. I'm one of 4, and my parents didn't want somebody in brackets a difficult eater, essentially, and they were just like, if you eat whatever's put in front of you or you're not eating. That was kind of the sort of situation in our house. So I sort of ended up adding things in, like sort of supplements and enzymes and all these different things, which had a varying degree of results. Purely, probably if I'd done both, it would have been far better. And actually, the lovely thing is, I'm psoriasis free. you're psoriasis free. So actually, we obviously, the journey has been long.
Came to the same place, yeah.
The journey's been long, maybe a bit painful. And also, we've kind of come to the same, quite similar conclusions in the sense of, yes, cut out certain things, and yes, add certain things in. But how lovely is it with social media now that, as you quite rightly were talking about earlier, we can actually share this experience so that other people don't have to go through this incredibly lengthy, drawn out process, which was a wee bit sort of trial and error, for lack of a better word.
Totally. And I think it is, and it's a lot of reading different things, and I think there's a lot of conflicting advice and guidelines out there, and there's certainly a lot of supplements. So I think it's hard when people don't have, you know, like you and I, who are probably a bit obsessed with skin and read about it all the time, and like if you're kind of dipping in and out, it's like, you know, there's like people get a lot of conflicting information. In fact, that's probably one of the things I get the most people contacting me about. Just, I've heard this, what about that? And I think that's where, like, I'm really passionate, and I always use the term like diet and lifestyle intervention, because I think slightly different diets work for different people, and slightly different interventions. So if you're a really heavy smoker, actually giving up smoking could be the big intervention that could transform your skin and actually bring you back to balance. You know, whereas if you're a heavy drinker, just a party animal, you know, again, just cutting that out completely, you could see really quick results. But for others, it can need more than that, you know.
Or it needs like a couple of wee tweaks.
Exactly. But I think with psoriasis, we were chatting about this, you know, it's like something's happened. Either we know that chronic stress has a massive impact on gut bacteria diversity, on like gut permeability. You know, you can end up with dysbiosis in the gut, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So we know that there's an intervention, there's something that's happened that's caused this imbalance. So it could be alcohol, it could be smoking, it could be a really horrendous diet, it could be a medication that someone's taken, trauma. All different things can have that issue, and then you're out of balance. And then when you're out of balance, that's when you start to see the problem. And probably both of us experienced it in a similar way, where it just kind of pops up a little bit, and then it kind of gradually gets worse and worse and worse.
And you're quite right. It's almost like it's had this trigger effect, and then you almost can't get it back. So even if the stress had gone, or the situation or the incident or whatever it is that has triggered it, you now, and I suppose when we were so young, we're so young, but we were so young.
Or not that young.
Don't tell anyone. I'm in denial. But when we were like 16, 17, and I suppose your lifestyle's changing so much, and you're not really in tune maybe with your body, or I definitely wasn't. I didn't ever know or could recognize what that trigger was. So you then have no idea how to get back to where you kind of started. And then, as you quite rightly said, it just almost like snowballs, doesn't it? Because then you're totally out of sync. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, this is it's unmanageable. And it starts becoming like, right, how are we actually going to deal with this huge problem, rather than just going, how do I get back to balance? Do you think that's
I totally agree, and I think that's kind of what we were talking about earlier as well, like in terms of like kind of the mental elements of it. And you know, so people can start off with, there's something that's triggered it, and then as we say, it kind of snowballs and it gets worse. But then actually that then creates a kind of circular problem, because you feel bad about yourself, you're self-conscious, you're feeling low, maybe suffering from a little bit of depression. That can then cause to drink more, or smoke more, or eat worse.
Or eat worse.
Isolate yourself. So it's kind of becomes a bit circular.
And I think, and we were saying this, because we've had this chat before, we were saying this earlier, actually, it's a really funny thing, because I've got this obsession with skin. I have had for years, because I've had honestly so many different skin issues in terms of I had proper full acne, I've had psoriasis, and well, I say they're probably the main things I've had. Actually, the sort of knock-on effect of that is really low confidence, low self-esteem, low mood. You know, you're just not yourself. And actually, it's not, people always think, oh, it's because you're a beauty therapist and you're maybe a bit shallow, or maybe you think this is all a wee bit superficial. Actually, the skin is a window to our internal health. But also, if our internal health isn't good, then there is a knock-on effect to your mental health and well-being. Even if it's just the fact that you're going, oh my God, I don't want to go out because my skin's a riot, or I'm not feeling comfortable or confident. Actually, it really becomes almost a holistic issue, doesn't it? Because now you've got to deal with everything.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think
definitely. And I think the thing with psoriasis as well, and I don't know because I've not had acne, but with psoriasis, there's the kind of aesthetic element of it, as in, oh, it doesn't look nice, or I don't feel good with it. But then there's the actual physical potential pain, certainly inflammation. I mean, I saw a scan of somebody's legs with psoriasis, and I can't remember what the name of the scan is, but I'll show you. I mean, it's like this person's legs are on fire, and it was about the inflammation under the skin, and it was just horrendous. And I just thought, I mean, it's like your own little personal hell, because the level of inflammation and that kind of like burning or itching, you know, that's kind of hellish in itself in isolation, without the kind of aesthetic, you know, how it looks and all these other things. So
well, it's bad enough, isn't it, to be in pain and to actually feel physically like uncomfortable. Acne, obviously, you don't ever feel it's as bad as that, but it is uncomfortable. It's sore to touch, especially if it's inflamed. It's back to this internal inflammation, isn't it? It's like trying to reduce that internal inflammation, get our guts feeling like more in balance and happy. And as you've quite rightly said, every single person's gut microbes will be so different in terms of their makeup, that one thing that worked for you were saying, was like a cut out cheese. For me,
like dairy and milk,
and dairy. Now, at the time when I was younger, I cut out bread and any kind of carby, and honestly, the difference was just like, wow. But that was just what was not happy inside of me. So even though we both had the same issue, we've had it from what we feel is completely different sort of food sources. But it did make such a difference for me eliminating that.
I mean, I have to say, when I did the 3 months, so I can't remember when I talked about that, if it was on here, but just because we've been chatting for a while. But so I followed quite a
Lianne? Was that a complaint?
No, I've enjoyed all of it.
So long, Shirley. I mean, she's still here.
I'm loving it. I'm loving looking at it.
Good answer. Good answer.
I just don't want to miss anything out.
I know.
So I was going to say, like, what I did was I followed quite a strict diet and lifestyle intervention for 3 months. We talked about this kind of 3-month window, but that's when. So I cut out bread during that time. I cut out gluten completely. I cut out dairy. I cut out alcohol and all these kind of things, and I really focused on self-care. So like, you know, early nights, good sleeping routine, lots of water. I think we talked about lemon water, but that was something. Yes, so both of us are really into that, and I think, like, you know, it's got antimicrobial or antibacterial properties, but it really helps like stimulate the digestive system and, like, you know, bile stimulation and things like that. So that's something we were saying, you have to be quite careful with your teeth.
Yes.
So maybe drink it with a straw.
I've got my metal straws.
Actually,
I know. Do you know, I think we've got very similar. I think it's quite funny when I'm talking to you, because we come at it. I was saying to you earlier, we've come at it from quite different sort of angles, but actually we've not really now. we've kind of ended up in the same end game, because we both you've gone into very, what can I cut out from the get-go, and looked at all the research and the studies, and I sort of looked at different research and studies, obviously, and looked at things that I could add in. But actually, I'm vegan. I don't really like telling people, because a lot of people don't like vegans, unfortunately. Never mind. But the joy of it is, actually, I've reduced, you know, the dairy, and I eat, and I don't do dairy, but actually I eat a shed load of vegetables, because and beans and lentils, and you know, it's all that type of that goodness. And I also take a supplement, just because I always feel like, just in case I'm missing anything, and I've always been a big fan of a supplement. But we've both done lifestyle, we've done foods, and then we've gone, right, hold on, sleep, loads of water, exercise, fresh air. Actually, it does kind of go hand in hand, doesn't it?
And I think the vegan stuff that you were talking about there, I think the vegan diet can be amazing if it's a good vegan diet. Like, you know, if you are eating the beans and the pulses and all these things. In fact, just did a podcast this week with a vegan bodybuilder who has psoriasis. And he was talking about, he's really only gone vegan this year, I think.
Right, okay.
And he has noticed, like, quite, I mean, his psoriasis is quite bad, but he's noticed quite a significant impact within like 2 or 3 months. But he, again, is...
Sorry, keep going. Sorry, I was going to interrupt you. I don't want to.
A wee bit there. I was just going to say, he, again, is really well educated in it. So he, you know, eats really, really well, a really good kind of
plant-based,
all-round vegan plant-based diet. And I think that's key, totally. But it's full of fibre, and I mean, that is like the prebiotic element. That's what the bacteria in your stomach eat. You know, there'll be more diversity, the more plant-based, you know, foods that you eat. So that's, I think that's one of the great benefits of a kind of plant-based or vegan diet.
I know, I have to agree with you. I think I'm not a big fan of the word vegan, purely because I feel that the pendulum swings to very sort of, you can be incredibly unhealthy vegan, or you can be very, very plant-based. And the language on it I prefer is plant-based, but a lot of people don't really recognize that. So when you go to, when I used to go to restaurants, when you go places, you would say, oh, I'm vegan. Do you remember those days? I can't remember when that was. You would say, I know. Oh, I can't wait to go back to a restaurant. My mouth's watering. But that's the thing. I had to change the language on it, because I would call myself plant-based, and then they would go, don't really know what you're talking about. So then you would say, oh, I'm vegan. But the problem is, you can become sort of junk food vegan, which is an issue. But but that's a side note, because actually at the end of the day, the best thing for people is just, I don't care if people are vegan or not vegan, eat more plants. You know, you're never going to go wrong.
Totally. And I think that is my approach as well. Is I think you know, live and let live in terms of what people's food choices are. But actually, if you want a really good, healthy gut, then you want to eat a lot of plants at the end of the day. And that's like a given. I mean, I have been vegan in the past, and I don't know if I had the best vegan diet, and I probably struggled with maintaining it.
It's not for everybody. And I think it's just not.
No, and that's the thing. But you can see people who are vegan. I mean, there's quite a few kind of pioneering vegans within the kind of psoriasis health community, and you know, they've seen amazing results and shared amazing results. I think for me, like, I'd be nervous to scare people off with, like, you have to be vegan to heal psoriasis, because I know a lot of people who have healed psoriasis without going vegan.
Well, you have.
Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it really depends on the type of diet that you're gonna actually have. So
but I think it's interesting, because you and I both were chatting earlier, saying that we would give everything 3 months, and I thought that was really funny, because neither of us, I had literally come to that conclusion through trial and error. And even when I talk to people about skin in the salon and, you know, how long is this going to take to heal? And when I'm talking skin, no matter what skin issue it is, I'm always talking about what they're eating, what they're drinking, or what they're not eating and they're not drinking, and then what can they take, and then what can we do topically. So, but every single time I talk about it, I've got this obsession with 3 months. And then when you said it was like 3 months, and I was like, me too. Why do you think it is 3 months?
Well, I mean, there have been a few studies into like how the microbiome like modulates and changes. So it's like, I mean, I think 3 months is a bit of a standard to make those changes. I think also, like we were talking about supplements, I think in order to build up some things in the body,
accumulated effect.
Exactly, yeah, it can take up to 3 months. And that's even with like, I mean, I kind of see salt baths as a supplementation. You know, the stuff that I've read up on that, you know, it's kind of soaking in the minerals and especially magnesium, like really helps to kind of balance the body. And it's a great way if you have got digestive issues to kind of get that magnesium into the body. So, yeah, I think 3 months is certainly, I would like to hope people would see changes within that time. And we were talking about, you know, it can be really disheartening if you're trying a diet intervention or a lifestyle intervention and you don't see the changes. It can be really demotivating.
And it can get worse, we were saying.
Yes, we were saying absolutely. It can get worse before it gets better, which is like the pinnacle of demotivation.
It's the most hard. It's happened to me before where I literally felt rubbish, and I was like, "This is getting worse. It's getting aggravated." But I think again, it's nice when like people can listen to this kind of chat, or they can follow your Facebook and go, "Actually, I know there's a potential. It's going to get worse. I'm going to stick with it." Because if you don't know that, sometimes you just totally go off track and you just give up and you think, oh, if you'd only given it another couple of months or a month or whatever.
And you know, there's a great book. I should be plugging my own book, but I'm
plugging
this.
Plug your own book.
But this book, this is the book that started the psoriasis revolution. So this is Healing Psoriasis, and it's by a Dr. John Pagano, and he's sadly no longer in the world, but he was revolutionary in publishing this book in 1991, and so many people, pioneering people in the diet and lifestyle intervention world for psoriasis started out with this book. And in it, every single one of his case studies, their skin got worse before they got better. And he documents every one of it, and honestly it's horrendous. It's like one of them's a little boy and he starts out with relatively bad psoriasis and it is like horrendous.
It's inflamed.
It completely goes. And because this was so trial and error, they must have just been thinking at the time, oh Christ, what have we done?
Yeah, we're actually making this worse. Yeah, which
exactly.
At the time they don't know if they could reverse that or how that would work.
Yeah, but I think now, like having a better understanding of it, and there's so much more research into the microbiome and the gut bacteria, and I think it does feel like it is like the death of all these, the kind of overgrowth of bacteria, the bad bacteria. It feels like it's the dying off of these things, which causes this really, in some cases, quite severe inflammatory response when we follow a really different diet or lifestyle intervention for a period of time. I think that seems to be what's causing
what's making it worse before it gets better.
Exactly.
I suppose though, even knowing that, you go, right, I'm going to stick with this. I know it's going to, and I feel like I wish our journeys might have been easier had we known snippets of things like that, because I think when I was younger, I gave up quite quickly when something didn't work. And then I came to this sort of realizing that this is 3 months and you're going to have to sit with something. But again, it was this trial and error, because lovely people like yourselves are almost like not eliminating it completely, because as you said, lots of people, for me it was bread and gluten, for you it was dairy. Actually it could be completely different, but if you can at least find what your thing is initially, or as you say, you just went and did it, right? Let's just pare this right back. Then and then add things in. It's sort of easier, isn't it, to sort of almost pinpoint it?
Totally, and I think that kind of elimination diet process, a lot of people do follow that. And as you say, different things work for different people. And I don't think, I'm not saying that I think that's the only option. I think, like, there's different ways to get psoriasis, like we said, like different things that trigger it, the trauma, the this. I feel like there's different ways to get back to balance. And that can be different for everybody. But I do think that diet, I don't always think diet's the problem. It is not always the thing that causes it or caused it. But I think it can be a real tool in getting things back to balance.
I would agree with that. I think that's, I mean, you were saying it's like lifestyle and diet to sort of, because obviously something's triggered it, some sort of trauma or some sort of change. There's something has created this. And but now you need to focus on how we're getting back into balance. So do you have top tips for like people, if you just think, do you know what, we've got psoriasis, is there
it's like we planned this, Shirley.
I know, it's honestly
this is my book.
Yes, so this is what we need.
10 powerful steps.
Love this.
To clear psoriasis.
Love it.
You can get it on Amazon.
Brilliant.
But yeah, that's my book, and so it's about my experience, like kind of across 20 plus years.
Love it.
But also it includes a lot of the research into the gut microbiome and all that information. So it's got kind of 10 top tips, but I think we've talked a lot about them today, you know, in terms of the self-care thing, which is a really big thing, and that's sleep, that's exercise. For me, that's being out in nature.
I'm the same.
And, you know, fresh air and sunshine, you know, it's all those elements of it. And also, like, really finding out what are your big stress triggers. Because a lot of people, you know, you can eat all the right food, you can stop smoking, you can stop drinking, but if you're really
still stressed out,
a kind of chronic stress, now that can be that your job causes stress, or your lifestyle in some way causes stress. But I think you either need to say, well, I'm going to try and cut that out in some way if it's possible, or I'm going to manage that better and manage it with exercise, or manage it with things like meditation and mindfulness and
dog walking, breathing work. You know, there's lots of different interventions for that. But I think stress, we know that stress has a huge impact on absolutely
the digestive system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and you know, it can really deplete the diversity of gut bacteria, and it can impact on you know, digestive juices and all sorts. So we know that stress is huge, and you want to try and pare that back as much as possible. So that's the kind of lifestyle advice, and then there's other information on like kind of you know, water intake and the lemon water and diet ideas and things. So
and all those wee things do have an accumulated effect. And I think if people just, it's not, I always think people, when they think diets, they think very short term. It's like lifestyle changes, which actually it's weird, because when people are not in the zone of doing it, they think it's a hassle. And then when you get into doing it and you feel better for it, you realise, oh, I actually do feel good for this. I actually quite enjoy it. It's not a chore or a hassle. It's now actually because I feel so good and I want to do it. And I think that's huge as well. But if people were wanting to sort of touch base with you or like follow you on social media, what are they going on to?
So, what's it all doing so I don't forget?
That's okay.
So I've got a podcast that's specifically around kind of gut bacteria and psoriasis. So it's called Gutted, and you'll find that on it's on Spotify and Apple and Google Podcasts.
Brilliant.
I've got a couple of books. So there's the 10 powerful steps to clear psoriasis, and there's also a book called Healed. If you want to check them out.
Definitely.
And I'm on Instagram on @fuel_for_health, and on Twitter, where I share a lot of the research, actually, specifically on Twitter. Any research that I around diet and lifestyle intervention, I'll share on Twitter, and that's at health_fuel.
Okay.
Fuel, yeah, I think so.
I'm the same. I'm like, yeah.
Like, what is that? What's that handle?
And what are you on Facebook?
So Facebook, I'm not that active on, actually.
Okay, that's fine.
But it'll be Fuel for Health on Facebook, but I tend to do more on Twitter and Instagram now.
Okay.
And I've got a biome blog at www.fuelforhealth.co.uk. And that's just, and it's just a blog. So I actually started out with the blog when I was doing my master's in digital marketing.
Okay.
Because that kind of like started the whole thing rolling for me, because I wanted to share my experience and interview and talk to people about their experience in diet and lifestyle interventions. So it was just interviews with people. They were kind of like 60-second interviews, vlogs. So they're all up there on the bio
blog. 60 seconds.
You don't chat though.
It's just
not like
60 minutes. It's just 60 minutes, Shirley. That's all it is.
60 minutes. This is like 2 hours. What you thought? No, I'm only joking.
It's probably not far off it.
But yeah, the blogs were like just a few questions, but they were great fun to do, and I did them all through uni, and then I kind of progressed on to, I felt like I really wanted to write books after that, and the podcast now is just interviewing people who have written books on psoriasis through diet and lifestyle intervention, or like the psoriasis bodybuilder, you know, they're really active on social media and sharing their journey, like exploring vegan diets and things like that for their psoriasis. So yeah, we talk about a lot of that on there.
Brilliant. I just love it when everybody gets together and we just can help each other. It's just so nice. So that other people, especially if it's like girls like us, that when we were 16 or 17, I would have loved to have had access to loads of chat, and for other people to say, yeah, I've got this problem too, because when you're younger especially, you're very in your own heads and you think you're the only one that's dealing with these types of things. So I think people are always going to say something negative about social media. Actually, the real plus point is that we can go on and follow you on Instagram or Twitter, and we can find out, actually, we're not the only ones going through this, and how did you deal with it? And actually, maybe I'll be able to take some of those nuggets and use that.
And I think it's amazing I'm actually getting emotional just listening to you, because I just think whenever I do anything, I feel like I'm doing it for my 16-year-old self or my 17-year-old self, and I'm like, this is what I would have wanted or loved, or would have really helped like my self-esteem, or like, you know, all these kind of things. And I just think that's always in my mind, and I think we're in a great place, and it really makes me thankful that people nowadays, if they are diagnosed or they're struggling, I feel like there's a lot more people they can reach out to, and people they can chat to, and advice they can get, which is lovely.
It's honestly, there are so many pros and cons to the social media, but that is something that I just absolutely love, because I'm like you. I see clients all the time in the salon, and when I'm speaking to them, I'm thinking, oh, this is like seeing me when or what I would have been like when I was younger, but I didn't have the same access to information, or even just people just talking about it and making it sound not as scary, or sort of, I think you just you can feel quite isolated in certain experiences, and you think, oh, I'm the only one that's going through this, when
I know
that's never true of anything, is it?
No, but I think the case was as well, probably similarly for you. You know, when I was diagnosed, it was like we had dial-up broadband, and it was like
I don't know if
or no internet.
Did. Yeah.
It was like, you know, there wasn't like these forums and these areas to chat. There wasn't a social interaction. There wasn't like the exposure. I mean, there's a great girl who does the hashtag Get Your Skin Out. And it's just like, you know, for other girls and boys, you know, seeing other people who've got psoriasis and just like, it is, you know, a lot of people have to deal with it, with a lot of other skin conditions, you know. But it does make it feel less isolating, I think, like they don't feel as isolated.
You know, it's just lovely. It's building communities, and I think actually that is just the key to so many, whether that be mental health issues or something like this. If people can come together, be part of a community, and realize that there's other folk that are in the same position, and this is not some, I think people feel a bit overwhelmed when you're dealing with stuff on your own. So yeah, I'm a big fan. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today twice. Massive apologies about that. One podcast, but 2 chats.
I feel like we should talk about my microgreens before we go.
Can we just,
people can't see them.
But I feel like we need to just say that Lianne is growing microgreens. And yes, if you're watching this on YouTube, she is holding up her microgreens. If you're not and you're on Spotify, we've got what looks to me like, do you remember when you were at school and you get those little hats of like watercress heads and used to like draw little smiley faces on yogurt cartons? You've got a really big version of this, and I'm loving it. What is the benefit of microgreens?
Oh, well, I was going to say, and it is as simple as what you did at school to grow them. I literally got this, it was like an old blueberry tub, and I filled it with soil, put the seeds in it, and within 3 days I had this, which for anyone that can't see it is pretty substantial amount of greenery.
It's a huge amount.
Yeah.
It's actually fantastic. I'm blown away that that's 4 days worth of growth. I feel like that's equivalent to, like, I don't know, it looks so, it looks like months. It looks like months.
And I mean, I had to cut it back pretty soon. I mean, I think it's kind of is ready to go.
Would you put this in a salad? What are you eating this in?
Salad. So you can put it in a salad, a smoothie, use it as garnish. You can put it in like soup.
What's the benefit of this?
So the benefits, so they're basically like baby greens. And the kind of the research that's been done is they seem to be packed full of nutrients. In some cases, 9 times more nutrients than mature greens. So like spinach and things like that.
That's amazing.
And the thing is, you're kind of eating them live because you're going to cut them and then you're going to eat them. And well, I don't know if these ones keep growing. I think you cut them back and maybe that's them done. I've not got that far with them. This is like my 3rd pot, but yeah, I think you just cut them back.
You just cut them back. It's incredible that you could have grown that in 4 days. I feel like this could be like it's like a project we could all get on board with. Because
and then you just chop them, munch them, and yeah, as I say, really like high value nutrients and various other like antioxidants and things like that.
You tell antioxidants to a beauty therapist, she's bought it, okay?
Because she's like, so your whole house is just going to be microgreens. I don't
even need to hear anything else, Lianne. Antioxidants in that? Yes, I am on this. Why do you think I eat plants all day? I'm obsessed with antioxidants. But you know what? Everybody, go out and buy yourself some what were they called?
They're called microgreens.
Microgreens. Go online. Get
so you can just get like seeds. And then just like plant them, and as it's just like in school, like when you plant a tree, and it takes a few days, and then you just eat them.
Like school.
Yeah, so well worth it. Good value for money.
I love it. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. I loved all our chats twice.
Thanks.
And I feel like we could talk about skin all day. I think we could just talk all day, actually. I don't even think it needs to be about skin. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and listening to another episode of Shirley Says. Please go on to iTunes and review me. Be kind, say nice things, share me with your friends. And please go on and follow the lovely Lianne at fuel_for_health on Instagram, and go and buy her books because she is amazing. And hopefully I will see you lovely people soon. Lianne, thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.